There is a country east of the lake where the roads go where the land will let them and nowhere else. Ridge and hollow and ridge again, folded close under the timber, and the roads keep to the high ground where the high ground allows, and where it does not, they go down among the sycamores and find the low way through. Gravel, most of them. At night, the gravel runs pale in your headlights like something poured out before you, and the woods stand at either hand and give back nothing. There is a road in that country that leaves the highway and goes down through the timber toward the water and comes back up to the highway again miles on. A long horseshoe of a road with two names, one name going down and another coming back. And off the first of them, a gravel road climbs away and keeps to the ridge tops. And that is Gilmore Ridge. Back beyond it, the country gets older and quieter, and the roads get thinner. And one of them follows a little run called Axum Branch. Say that name out loud sometime. Axum. It sounds like something said low, so it will not carry. Some of the roads back in there end in water. They just walk down off the hill and into the lake and are gone. But here is the thing, and hardly anybody remembers it anymore. They are not gone. Those roads all connected once, running down through the bottoms from one place to another the way roads do, and when the water came up, it did not erase them. It only covered them. You can stand where the gravel gives out at the shore and see nothing before you but a vast expanse of water, and call that road ended if you like. And then you can hike miles around, out along Grub Ridge and down to Hesitation Point, and look out and away across all that water. You will find it again, the same nameless road, coming up out of the lake on the far side and going on as though it had only gone under for a while and come back up for air. The road never quit. It is down there yet, running along in the dark beneath the lake, keeping its way between two shores that no longer know each other. This is a story I had from a man who lives up one of those roads, and I have had pieces of it since from others in other tellings, so weigh it however you see fit. The man was called Frank. He was young then, in high school, coming home late from his first job stocking shelves at a local grocery store in Bloomington. It was a cold night with frost promised, and he came over a rise on Gilmore Ridge, and his lights swung around the bend and found a girl at the edge of the road. She was young, 17 maybe, and she wore a long pale dress, thin as a nightgown, no coat over it, and her dark hair was down and her arms were bare in that cold, and she did not wave and she did not put out her thumb. She only stood at the gravel's edge and watched his lights come on, the way a deer will watch. He was past her before he had rightly seen her, and then he braked and sat a moment with the dust of his own passing drifting red through the taillights, and then he backed up. He said afterward there was never a question in it. You do not leave a girl standing on that ridge on such a night, whoever she is. He leaned across and rolled the window down. You all right? I'm trying to get home, she said. Where's home? Axum Branch, she said. Well, he said, you're in luck. I can take you down that way, no problem. Get in. She got in. She sat all the way against the door with her hands folded in her lap like a girl in church, and the cold came off of her in a slow pouring way that he put down to the night, and he turned the heater up and offered her the jacket off the seat, and she only looked out at the woods going by as though he had not spoken, and after a moment he let it be. He asked her name, and she said Ruth Ann, and he told her his, and she nodded at the windshield as though she were putting it away somewhere. And here's a thing he owned up to, only a long time after, and to precious few. She was the prettiest girl he had ever seen, and he was not given to saying such things, then or ever. He drove that ridge road slower than he had any cause to, and the whole back half of the ride he was working up to something, some small word to keep the door open, whether she might be at church of a Sunday, whether he might call on her people sometime, and he turned the words over and over and could not get them said. It's not so late, he said. She didn't answer that. Where the road comes down toward Axum Branch, it forks, and both forks run out to the water and end there, one just a little sooner than the other, and the people of that country, in their unkillable dry way, have always called the two of them Dead End and Deader End, and they call them that to this day. She sat forward when the fork came into the lights, and the time for his small word was gone, and it had never come. "Here," she said. "This is close enough. I know the way from here." "It's no trouble to take you all the way," he said. "Right here works," she said. "Please." So he stopped at the fork, and she thanked him and got out, and he sat a moment, and then began to back around in the road to turn for home, and his headlights swung across the trees and came around and found her again, standing where the two roads part. And she turned in the light and looked at him and raised her hand. Not a flag, not a signal, a wave, small and glad, the way you wave at someone who has done you a kindness. And then she turned and walked on down into the dark, past the reach of his lights, toward home, and he drove up out of there feeling, he said, the way a guy feels when he has done one plain good thing in a day. It was only later, lying awake, that the country came back to him the way a map comes back, and he remembered what every man of that ridge knows and never thinks about, which is that there is nothing down either one of those forks anymore. Not a house, not a light, nothing down there but the water. In the morning, there was a ribbon on the seat. A hair ribbon, pale, creased where it had been tied. It had not been there before her, and it was there after her. And he sat in the car, in the cold, looking at it for a long time. She had taken nothing from him. Not the jacket, not so much as the heat, near as he could tell. Nobody had said anything about leaving things. And he was half ashamed at how glad he was to find it, because a left thing wants returning, and now he had his reason to go and find her. He went back in the daylight. He told himself he was only returning what was hers, and that much was true. But he had shaved close and put on a clean shirt to do it, and on the drive out he caught himself running words in his head, the small, foolish rehearsals of a young man going to call on a girl. He drove first to the fork and sat there with the motor running, looking down two empty roads, and whatever that did to him, he set it aside, the way the young can. Then he tried the road that runs toward Axum Branch, meaning to knock at the first door he came to and ask after a girl named Ruth Ann who had been walking home 2 nights past. The first mailbox stood on a cedar post, old and leaning, and the name on it, hand-lettered and gone gray, was Sturgeon. It meant nothing to him. It was only a name on a box. The woman who answered the door was old and small, and she looked at him the way the old look at strangers on their porches, until he held out his hand with the ribbon lying across it. And then she did not look at him at all anymore, only at the ribbon, and she put one hand against the door frame, and he stood there watching a thing move through her face that he said he would carry the rest of his life. "Where did you get that?" she said. "A girl left it in my car," he said. "Night before last. I gave her a ride, up on Gilmore. She said her name was Ruth Ann." "That's not possible," the old woman said. Her voice was not angry, and it was not frightened. It was worn, the way a stone step is worn. "My daughter has been gone for so long. 15 years now." Whatever words he had rehearsed on the drive out went from him then, all at once, and they never came back. He would have gone. He had it in him to apologize and go, and let it be some cruelty of coincidence. But he could not help himself, and he described her, the dark hair down, the long pale dress, thin as a nightgown. And the old woman closed her eyes and stood there in the doorway a long time, and when she spoke, it was hardly out loud. "That's the dress she's buried in." She had him sit on the porch, and she brought out coffee. Neither of them drank, and she told him, plain, in the voice of a woman long past crying about it, because she had done her crying in a decade nobody visits anymore. There had been a dance, she said, at the school in Nashville. Ruth Ann had gone with a boy from church, in her good dress, with a ribbon in her hair, and she was to be home by 10, and her mother sat up with the porch light on the way she always did. And coming home, out on the highway, where the blacktop bends above the Alps, the car left the road. A cold night, the first hard frost of that fall, and the bend comes up quick if you don't know it. And maybe the boy took it too fast, and maybe the frost took it for him, and nobody was ever able to say, and in the end it didn't matter. What mattered was that she was 2 miles from the turnoff, 10 minutes from the gravel. She had gone all the way to town and danced all night and come almost the whole way back. And the last little piece of it, the piece that was hers, the ridge road and the fork and the walk down to the house with the light burning, she never got to make. They buried her in the old Deckard cemetery in a long pale gown her mother chose. And her mother went home to a house with 1 bedroom empty, and the porch light, she told Frank, still burned every night. She said it the way you would say a thing you had stopped expecting anyone to understand. He understood it fine. A light in the dark is the one thing left that a mother can do. Frank gave her the ribbon. It had been in her girl's hair when she left for the dance, she said. It had not been among the things that came back. He is not the only one. Ask along those roads and you will hear it, though you will have to sit a while to get it, because it is not a story people hand to strangers. A woman who drove a school bus, barreling home in the dark, who stopped for a girl at the cemetery entrance and lost her before the fork. A boy and a girl parked where they should not have been, who never parked there again. A man coming back from a trip with his family asleep in the car, who did not stop, and who watched her in his mirror standing in the road behind him, small and white in the dust of his going. It is always the cold end of the year, the first hard frosts, the season of the dance. She is always on the gravel, never out on the blacktop, and I have thought about that, and I believe I understand it. The blacktop is where the world let go of her. The gravel is the part of the way home she never got to make. She is not haunting anything. She is finishing her trip. And she is so close. That is the thing I cannot get out from under. The thing that makes this the saddest story I know how to tell. She is not lost in some far dark country. She is 2 miles from the turnoff, 10 minutes from the gravel, a walk from the light. She has been almost home for a very long time. Back on Axum Branch, the porch light is burning. An old woman keeps it the way other people keep a grave, and if you asked her why, she would tell you what she told Frank, plain, past crying about it, because her girl is not done walking yet, because a light in the dark is the one thing left. Some believe Ruth Ann will never reach it, that whatever holds her to those roads is stronger than wanting, but wanting is the oldest thing in these hills. I would not bet against it, and neither would her mother, and the light stays on. Frank still lives up his ridge road. He is not a man who talks, and he never told this to but a few, but they say he drives that stretch of Gilmore slower than he needs to in the back end of the year. They say that on cold nights, he lays his jacket on the seat beside him before he sets out, the way you would set a place at a table, just in case. And I believe that, because it is the only part of this story that anybody can do anything about, and he is doing it. So if ever it is you, coming home late over Gilmore Ridge with frost predicted, and your lights come around a bend and find a girl in a pale dress at the edge of the road, in the cold with her dark hair down, you will know her now. Stop. Take her as far as the fork, where dead end and deader end go down to the water, and let her out where she asks you to, even knowing what you know, because it is not for you to tell her where her home is. And when you back around in the road to turn for your own house, your lights will swing through the trees and come around and find her one last time, standing where the 2 roads part, and she will turn, and she will raise her hand to you, small and glad, the way you wave at someone who has done you a kindness. Wave back.